Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Boys in Motion podcast. We're your hosts, Andrew, Brian, and Tyler. We're here to break down the tips and strategies you need to excel in endurance sports. This is episode 10, and today we're diving into all the important topics of fueling for performance. Whether you're gearing up for a marathon, a triathlon, or even better, a long day in the saddle, knowing how to fuel your body will make all the difference. So, if you've ever wondered what, when, and how to eat to optimize your endurance, this is the episode for you.
I could not have said it better myself, except maybe the even better being the marathon. But fueling for performance is an absolute game changer when it comes to optimizing your endurance and maximizing your potential. Today we're going to break down what endurance fueling is, why it's crucial, and how you can use the right nutrition strategies to avoid the dreaded bonk.
Gotta hate the bonk. You know what they say, folks. Exercise is king, nutrition is queen, and you put that together, you get the kingdom, baby. Let's go.
Love it. So yeah, let's chat about it. Why do we fuel for our endurance training, and why is it so important?
So, providing the body with the necessary energy and nutrients to sustain prolonged physical activity is key. And sports science has really come a long way in the last few decades around proper fueling and nutrition, and it's all the buzz right now. And really the whole goal is when you're doing a long sustained effort, you need to be stocking the furnace with carbohydrates so that you can maintain blood sugar levels throughout your exercise so that you're not just burning through all of your battery and not having any replenishment. And like you said earlier in the intro, seeing that dreaded bonk, which is really when your body runs out of fuel. So the optimal fueling strategy is one that allows you to keep performing.
You don't want to be in that bonk. And honestly, that's the only reason I just keep going longer and longer is just basically a buffet. You just got to keep eating, keep on top of your carb stores, and you just keep on going.
Yeah, yeah, we gotta pump up those glycogen stores, and that's really what the carbs are doing, and allows us to keep that even blood pressure as we're running. If you stop on the carbs and you hit that bonk and the blood pressure is low, you're feeling woozy out on the road. It's not a good feeling. But carbs, although the primary fuel source for endurance activities, is just one piece of the puzzle of the three macronutrients. The others being protein, which is really important for muscle repair and recovery, and then also fats, which can be a secondary fuel source, and especially for those ultras, they'll utilize fats a little bit more for super long duration endurance exercises. So we'll chat a little about that and when to consume those when doing endurance activities.
So I just want to break down exactly what the bonk is. And in the running world, we do call that hitting the wall as well. So essentially, before you begin at any activity, your muscles and your liver have built up these glycogen stores. So essentially, energy that's trapped and ready to be used in the form of carbohydrates and sugar in your muscles, in your liver. And so, with those energy stores, you only have a certain amount. And in endurance sports, oftentimes you're going over that kind of hour and a half, 2 hour mark where your glycogen stores will be completely and entirely depleted if you don't refill them with carbohydrates. And so this is a key for any endurance athlete. When you're doing a long sustained effort, you need to be replenishing your body, giving it its fuel, its carbohydrates, so that you can keep going, just essentially making sure that there's fuel throughout the entire prolonged activity.
Yeah, and let's jump right into what that kind of looks like in a training day as far as what should be consumed and kind of when to bring you to those sessions and help you recover properly. So just kind of the first stage is, even before you start doing your endurance activity, you need to be thinking about fueling because it is super important. This might look a little different if you're gearing up for a race, and that we can chat about in another episode. But just for a normal training session, I would say generally about 3 to 4 hours before the session. If you do it super early in the morning, this might just be about an hour, 30 minutes. So this depends based on when you like to work out, but this will be a carbohydrate rich meal, and this is to get that energy up. So just some examples would be a nice big bowl of oatmeal, some nice bananas, a nice rice dish, or some pasta. So really carbs are king here. You want as many carbs as possible.
Also, big tip and trick, if you're doing an early morning session, I like carbing up the night before. You could always get that bowl of pasta in and get a bit more protein in the night before so you could digest it. But the big carb meal right before a morning session the night before is also big key to success.
Exactly. And I like to use that like old tale that mama used to say, which is you can't jump in the pool right after you eat because you're going to cramp up. Well, it's the same thing for running and biking. If you just golf down a meal right before you're about to hit the road, you're going to feel woozy, you're going to feel pukey and nauseous while you're exercising. So you want to give enough time for your body to digest that big meal, those carbohydrates, so they're actually like being produced into energy in your muscles, being stored in your glycogen stores, instead of just like, eating a 2 pound bowl of oatmeal and immediately going out for a run. That's a recipe for disaster.
I love
Let me
cement in my stomach when I'm running at threshold pace.
Oh, that's a real nice. Get the burps going.
Yeah, and another thing about training and having that like pre-race or pre-training meal is you do want to balance complex and simple carbohydrates here. Like a food like oatmeal has a good balance, especially if you add some brown sugar or maple syrup, of complex carbohydrates, which are in the oats, and then the simple carbohydrates, which are in the sugars that you're adding on top. Because
So what's
something
the
like
difference? What's the difference?
so the reason you're looking for more complex carbohydrates is that their digestion takes longer. And so you can actually kind of prolong that digestion cycle. So you eat a bowl of oatmeal, you might be getting power 2, 3, 4 hours from now, rather than a little piece of candy. You're going to get that instant boost in your blood sugar because that's hitting fast and quick because it's a simple carbohydrate, so it gets absorbed into your body so much faster.
Now it's time to head to Bulk Barn and grab the biggest bag of candy you can, because we're in the quick sugar zone. We're in the during training or during your race where all you want is that quick digesting carbohydrates to just maintain those energy levels throughout the session. So some examples, you can do classic energy gels, sports drinks, chews, even bananas. Some people do bananas if it's a longer event and depending what your stomach can handle. Or just some nice simple candy, some nice dried fruit is a great option. I love that on some of my long runs. So just a couple examples, but if you have a favorite candy or something like that, there's sometimes nothing better than just about to bonk and having a nice piece of candy. So it is the time for it.
Oh, that gives you just like another life with the candy. My go-to is fuzzy peaches. It's just like nice. You chew on that, gives you some nice energy and quick, like you guys mentioned.
Yeah, so some fast digesting carbohydrates are key. Something else that's important to note here, because we hear it a lot from some community members, is like they don't want to eat during a prolonged endurance ride or run, for example, because they want to lose weight and they think that that's the optimal thing to do, which is very, very counterintuitive. Because the fact is, it is very, very difficult to eat enough while you're exercising to actually be in a net positive calorie position. So you're consuming more than you're actually burning while you're biking, while you're running, while you're swimming. It's actually very difficult to overconsume calories. So what tends to happen is if you don't eat, you're essentially artificially shortening your potential session length because you're going to hit that wall, bonk earlier, if you don't consume calories during that ride. So by not consuming calories, you actually diminish the potential to be in a net negative state.
And you sacrifice performance and risk injury too. That's a big thing that you always teeter on the side of caution. If you don't eat enough, you don't fuel enough before, during, or even after, you risk those.
But don't worry, for those people that are not wanting to eat during their runs, generally our recommendation would be for endurance activities that are around an hour and a half or more is normally when you're going to want to fuel during the activity. Anything shorter than that, your pre-activity meal should be enough to fuel you. So you don't necessarily need to do it on every single activity.
Yeah, and that's for fueling for carbohydrates. On the opposite, when you're looking at hydration during activity, the importance of having electrolytes and just simply water and a combination of both is key even for shorter activities, especially in the summer. Like I went out for a 45-minute run today and I didn't have any water on that, and I could feel myself pretty dehydrated at the end of it, and it was affecting my performance. So I would definitely look at the weather, make sure that you have a hydration strategy for any activity if it's over kind of 25, 30 minutes, especially in the heat of the summer.
Pool water. Key to success is the pool water. It's a nice little hydration hack where you could get those electrolytes in while you're just sipping on the water, baby.
Yeah, and now we've just arrived home after that activity. We've taken in all that fuel, and now what do we do once we get back? You hear a lot of around this post-workout window, generally that 30 to 60 minutes. I'm not actually sure. There's been some that I think have debunked that it's like this hard and set window, but I think it is nice to have kind of that general window so that you can kind of give yourself a reminder of this is that time that you want to combine carbs and protein to help speed up your recovery. I know you guys are the big protein guys. So what are some of your go-tos after a nice hard session?
Brian got me hooked. Brian, tell them.
Yeah, so well, I can speak for myself personally, and what I enjoy is generally after a training session, I will enjoy something that has some carbs in it, but then also a protein shake, and potentially a protein shake with a scoop of pool water in it. So like a salt electrolyte mix. So it's a kind of like a salty chocolate mix after a run outside. And I'm just mixing kind of like your Costco bulk bag of protein with water, and then I'll maybe have a banana or something else with carbs, especially when I do a longer session. That is kind of my go-to because I want to repair the muscles that I've broken down during that stint of activity. And there is like muscle protein synthesis does tend to spike post workout and trail off to a certain extent. And so you have a declining window where there's more bang for your buck if you eat immediately. But really, the key is there you should be consuming protein pretty much all the time in regular intervals when you're not exercising. And then, yeah, like I say, some carb, rehydrate, especially in the hot summer months. Those are my key tips.
I actually went to a nutritionist a couple years ago, and they said that the post-workout meal is the most important. You have to kind of shift your mindset to you're finished your one workout, you're trying to get ready for your next one, and that post-workout meal really sets you up on the right foot for the next workout. So I find that ever since they told me that, it's just been like engraved to not skip a meal right after or not cheap out on that.
And I think that's the key is like the what you want to avoid, and the reason they talk about an anabolic window after exercising is, yeah, you want to refuel properly. Whether or not there's like such an impact in that first 30 minutes is less important. What is key is like you need to refuel, so do it quickly so that you can recover faster. At the end of the day, the anabolic window of like is should it be 20 minutes, should it be 30 minutes, that's hyper optimization. There are sports scientists that you can follow across the web who will give you their opinions on that. I think our position is really refuel properly after a workout so that you can bounce back quick and smash that next workout as well.
And I think my pro tip on this one is that this is the one where the planning of what you're going to eat afterwards is super important, because I know sometimes when at the end of the week and my meal prep is kind of gone, I don't have much, and I've just done this long run and I just come back and I'm just fiending for some simple sugars, and I'm just in there just picking whatever I can, and then all of a sudden I've eaten no protein and just simple sugars, and I'm just, yeah. So plan ahead.
I found a good hack for that actually that helped me this week in particular. Grocery shop on the Friday night, folks. Grocery shop on the Friday. Then you have food all weekend for your long sessions and into the next week. Actually, I'm still good on I'm re-upped on my groceries. Didn't even do groceries this week, so it was great.
That's a good tip. And I think it's all about habit. Like I'm in the habit now of always having a protein shake and then some sort of carb after a workout, and then quickly on the rehydration. And it's simple, it's automatic, and everybody should kind of have those micro habits after they exercise. Like it's the same thing as like I wash out my strap if I sweat a lot on it for my heart rate monitor. It's simple, it's ingrained, and now it's a micro habit. It's the same thing with the post exercise nutrition. Find something that you like, that you enjoy, that is nutritious for you as well.
Yeah, we've been chatting lots about fueling, but I definitely have some questions on when I'm in that activity. I think it's a little easier said than done, and we need to have some strategies together of how to actually properly fuel and efficiently fuel during our activity. Because I think there are definitely some differences between running, cycling, and swimming, and how we're actually consuming that, and what types of things we can consume.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Ty, I'm really interested to hear your perspective. Maybe we can go through this in the same way that we would go through a triathlon. So we can start with swim, move on to bike, and then finish with run. So Tyler, this is perfectly teed up for you.
Swimming is tough, but again, with the nutritionist, they actually said that the pre just like a race, I guess the pre-workout meal obviously is very important. So I used to do morning swims, and I used to just not eat breakfast and just go out for the swim and eat afterwards. But they really honed in on eating beforehand and making an effort on eating beforehand, even if it's like if it was a quick granola bar on literally walking towards the pool, like just something in your stomach, get a little bit of carbs in prior to that swim. Now going later at night, I try to get dinner in a couple hours before. Like Mama said, don't want to jump in the pool without digesting that food. So I try to get the food intake well before a swim, but never really have during. Obviously, that would be pretty tough. But something, if you're at the pool, something quick like liquid carbs is always great, like Gatorade, or just something simple. Don't overcomplicate things. You don't have to eat for a session or anything like that. And again, like on a race, you're not going to be eating mid swim unless you're just eating the weeds. So you got to also like train like you're going to be racing. So you're not really taking any nutrition during the swim portion. You're kind of just making sure you're well fueled before and then instantly after. So that's kind of my go-tos for the swim portion.
Yeah, that makes sense. And having a water bottle on the pool side that has a little bit of carb in it makes a lot of sense to me. It's a
Key.
little bit tougher in open water, of course. What I always find impressive is the ultra swimmers when they have like a support boat that will drop them some fuel and they switch to a backstroke, and in like 1 second they'll just obliterate a full bottle with carb mix in it. It is the craziest thing.
Out of this world. Crazy.
Have you ever had the opportunity to try that?
No, only thing I've done was do a lap of outdoor swimming. I do a lap, come back to the beach, run like a maniac on the beach, grab some carbs, and then run back out. That was kind of like my simulation of being a crackhead. So.
If we ever go on a portaging trip together, we'll get you in the open water and I'll be in the canoe next to you and I'll toss you a little bottle of pool water with some sugar in it.
Oh, let's do that, or get a gel in me.
All right, I think next up is the bike, and I can think of no one better to answer this one than you, Brian. So how are you staying fueled on that bike?
Yeah, so I think the bike is by far the easiest of the three disciplines to stay well fueled on, because you're essentially just sitting up in the kitchen the whole time, and you can properly time you can properly time your fueling and your hydration, especially some bike computers similar to sport watches. You can actually set reminders to eat and drink on them. So I have a reminder for any long ride that I go on. I have a 30-minute reminder for snack time. I have it labeled as, and I just dismiss it and have some sort of snack. You have three pockets full of fuel if you want. You can have a bottle. Generally, I'll have a bottle that has a carb mix and then a regular bottle of water. My carb mix will have electrolytes as well. And the tougher thing on the bike is more so balancing the hydration, especially on hot days. You kind of need to stop every so often, refill your bottles with water and the carb mix. And then for fuel, you can easily put 5 hours, 6 hours of fuel in one jersey pocket. And then it's just a matter of trying to consume 50 to 120 grams of carbs every hour, depending on the intensity of your exercise. So I think biking is pretty straightforward. If anybody in the community has questions about fueling on the bike, I have a decent amount of knowledge on that. So feel free to reach out on Instagram or any of our other socials, and we can chat about it.
What are some of your favorite, if you got to pick two, two instant carb go to in your pocket, you only get two choices. What do you pick?
My favorite is just throwing a banana back there. I think that's really great. It's about
It
25
looks
grams of
cool too.
it
It
looks
looks cool.
cool. You got a banana in the back pocket, and you can just consume that. It's about 25 to 30 grams of carbs. And if there's a fast guy on your tail, you can always whip that banana down and hit him with the Mario Kart spin. So I think a banana is fun. And then I would also say just bread is really nice, something to chew on. So what I'll do is before a long ride, I'll take 4 pieces of bread, put a tiny bit of peanut butter, and then a good amount of honey, and just squish them together all in one sandwich bag. And if I eat one of those every 30 minutes, I have 2 hours of energy right there in a single Ziploc bag. And it's extremely cheap, and it's a little more hearty than just sipping on goose.
Yeah, you gave me that tip and it was actually real nice. It was a good, like you said, a good change from just that straight sugar bland taste. So it was good.
Exactly. And it's like it's more real food. So that's what I think is the advantage of the long ride is you can eat more food rather than when you're running. And I think Andrew's the right guy to talk about that. The long run, you want to fuel, but you only have so much space.
Yeah, I think running is where it can get a little bit dicey for people as far as fueling on that run. And I think one is the space element and figuring out how you're going to carry all of this fuel. And two would be the just there's a lot more motion going on and actually taking in and avoiding GI distress. So there's a couple strategies there on how to avoid that. So let's start with actually carrying that fuel on you while you're running. My preferred strategies are I love a flip belt. If no one has seen it, it's a piece of fabric that essentially goes around your waist and there's pockets and they're easy to access. You can flip them inside out so things aren't falling out, but you can actually hold quite a bit of stuff. Pretty discreet. A little less discreet as if you want to do a I know, and I'm looking at Tyler because I know I just saw a video of him with one on. Is a hydration vest where you have pockets here. You might have a backpack. That's a good option if you're doing a longer run or
That's for a 20 miler.
exactly. I mean, I'd say even more than that, but I guess just depends. You're used to those buffets on the bike, so I get it. So you can do that, or if I'm doing something shorter or I want to do something where I'm more simulating a race scenario, choosing shorts that have good pockets. I really like the Brook Sherpas. They have nice big pockets in the back. Or recently, I also have liked half tights, and I find half tights are really nice for storage, nice big pockets, and because of the compression, there's a lot less jiggling, which I think is huge. You're gonna notice it a lot less, which is nice. So those are kind of my favorite storage options. Do you guys have anything else?
Oh, I got the nice race belt with the crown of gels around. I love the crown of gels just out in the open for everybody to see what your nutrition plan is. You just slide one out and guzz it back. It's friggin' nice.
For me, I make my own gels. So I have a concoction that I mix up with maltodextrin, fructose, and some thickeners. And then I actually throw it into kind of baby pouches, like baby applesauce pouches. And with them, like you say, the compression of some shorts or even like half tights are really nice because I can just throw that between the tights and my body and it'll just stay there with the cap exposed at the top. And so that's what I do on my long runs and it's very, very handy.
I see the cap all the time. It's just like sticking out, just waiting for you to grab it.
Andrew, what are you doing for hydration on a run?
So I will do a couple things. If I'm going for a super long run, I do have a simple running vest that has two soft flasks on the chest. So that's a good option. If you're doing something longer, you could even just do like a camelback or something like that if you need to carry multiple liters of water. So that's a great option. A lot of times, what I really like is I have a Nathan water bottle that kind of conforms to my hand and it has a strap. So I really like that because I don't need to actually hold the bottle. It just kind of is strapped there, so I don't need to think about it. And it's just that nice running motion. So that's a product I really like. Or I'll even just do a soft flask in my hand. So that's nice too. I've also seen people with like lightweight bottles and they use like a buff and they'll wrap that buff around their hand and kind of simulates that Nathan bottle if you just want something on a similar effect but on a budget. So those are generally what I do. Or you could always just try to plan your route. I have a nice waterfront trail that has a lot of water fountains, so you can always also just try to plan routes that have convenient water fountains to stop at along the way.
Oh yeah, that is a good idea. I forgot about that. I've done a couple of those runs where it's just like you go visit all the water fountains around and you stay nice and light and you stop at every water fountain like you're back in second grade and you take a sip.
That's what I love is kind of setting up your route so that you have hydration stations or a single point near your home where you'll kind of do, let's say, 6 kilometers out 3 or 4 different times, and every 6 kilometers you can grab some water.
Yeah, that's doing a loop like that and popping back in home is a good option as well, especially if you just have like large blocks or something like that. The other big thing to consider with running is GI distress. Unlike spending time in the saddle where it's just an all-day buffet, and I think for most people it's, your stomach's not sloshing around, but with running you really want to figure out what works for you and then just kind of stick to it. This is really the nothing new on race day or nothing new on big important sessions day. So this is really finding things, whether that's a gel, whether that's real foods like dried fruit or candy, and finding something that sits well in your stomach. Also considering different paces, because for some people going at 5K pace or going at half marathon pace, different things will sit differently in your stomach. So practice it beforehand and make sure that all is good. It's giving you the energy you need, and you're not yakking at the end of the session or during the session.
Exactly. Practice, practice, practice. What I noticed in the last marathon training block was I was super good on like goos and consuming gels, but the moment I added caffeine to those gels, boom, my GI distress was through the roof and I felt nauseous consuming gels with caffeine. So something as small as adding one little change up to your nutrition can really throw you for a whirl. So practice exactly what you're going to consume on race day.
My strategy for this one is most of my long runs, longer, like medium long runs, I will do more dried fruit, candy, stuff like that, more products that I have at home that are kind of cheap and affordable. And then for my race strategy on my marathon and half marathon pace workouts, that is where I will tune that in. And I will, if it's, I have a 10-mile block in the middle of that, I am going to take one of those gels that is going to be on the race course or that I'm going to bring with me so that I know my stomach will like those as well. And make sure you experiment with different flavors because flavor fatigue is real. So either switching it up or getting some of the unflavored ones is a good option.
Flavor fatigue with unflavored stuff also is a thing. Don't bat an eye on that. That was a big thing for my Ironman. Was I was just getting so tired of the unflavored stuff that I was like going insane.
All right. I think I think we may have yapped on enough about activity specific nutrition, and I think maybe we can jump right into some of our hot nutrition do's and don'ts. Brian, do you want to kick us off?
My hot do, and maybe we can do a round of do's then a round of don'ts, is to consume enough basically until the point where you're about to get GI distress. You can consume a ton of carbs and still feel really, really good. One gel an hour, in my opinion, is under fueling. So push the limit, see where your body can get to in terms of consuming carbohydrates on a run, on a bike, in the pool, so that you know what your individual thresholds are for each of those activities. And when you're in those high intensity workouts, push that limit. You should be consuming as much as your body can allow.
And what would you say for those risk takers that are trying to push those limits? What is your general range for grams per hour that you like to shoot for?
Okay, so grams per hour, personal kind of threshold limits for me are about 75 to 80 grams of carbs running per hour. That's 3 gels per hour. And then on the bike, I can easily put down 120 grams of carbs per hour. Swimming, I've never swam long enough to even need any nutrition.
1 gram of
Swimming
carb will
zero.
sink me. 1 gram, I'm going right to the bottom.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're not really talking about, but also like an endurance sport, is things like rucking or hiking. I would say it's the same, pretty similar to running as well. You're not burning quite as much, and maybe you want to air with some more fat. So like having a trail mix has a good balance of carbs and fats because of the nuts and the fats in the nuts. But again, it would be somewhere around 50 to 80 grams of carbs per hour.
For example, like I'm way under that. That's just like we were saying, everyone's personal, right? So mine is like a good 40, 50 grams under what you're consuming, Brian. So it doesn't matter, the what you're doing. It just depends on the body. So to
Exactly.
keep that limit and then stay within it is the biggest thing.
Precisely, but it's important to try to find where that limit kind of exists. You don't need to push yourself into the territory of having nausea, but if you're only ever consuming 1 gel an hour, no matter what activity you do, try to see how you feel, because at the end of the day, you're going to get more performance out of consuming two than you are one.
My limit was the day we did that big nasty, right at the end of the ride. I was like, I'm overloaded with carbs. The big nasty and the muffin was too much.
You need denser carbs. That's the problem. Tyler, what is your do for nutrition?
Right, I was thinking about that. My do is I am really getting into liquid carbs. I don't care if you're on the bike, if you're on the run. I find liquid carbs is kind of the best of both worlds. I do a nice mix of a homemade electrolyte mix and a carb mix, so it's like a potion of pure speed. I could get it easily. I think I got a nice mix down with like some lemonade, a nice flavor that you like. You get a good 100 to 120 grams of carb in, and then a good at least 1500 milligrams of sodium in, and it's just you have so much sugar in there that you could bump up the salt too, and you don't taste it as much, but you water it down a little bit, put it in a bottle, and it's I like it because you could also gauge on how much you're drinking. Like for Brian, you'll have that in an hour for in a bottle. I'll have that bottle over 2 hours, for example. So it's a good easy way to gauge your intake.
Yeah, I've been loving just flasks of simple syrup both on the bike and running, and it's also for me such an easy way of like I can measure 80 grams of sugar, X amount of grams of sugar, and I know exactly how much I'm consuming. And you can put so much in one flask, and I don't really need to think about it. I just know at the end of this activity, this flask needs to be gone. Simple. I can do that.
Easy
So
peasy.
I love it.
It's like brain dead. It's a glitch.
I love being brain dead on my activities. Ideal.
Andrew, I need your do now. For the speedy runner man, I want to hear it.
My do is do prioritize electrolytes in your nutrition plan. This past marathon block, I really upped my electrolytes during and especially after. And I found a huge difference in just my energy levels and feeling sluggish after activities. In some of my peak weeks where I'm running, 70, 75 miles, I was finding in past blocks, I was just completely dead by the end of the week and dreading the runs. Where this past one, my energy levels were just way better. And I think that has to do a lot with the electrolytes because I'm a salty sweater.
Yeah, you can't ignore the salt. I think that has been my biggest
The
learning outside of carb intake is just how important consuming salt, potassium, magnesium is to sustain your performance over a training block. Because you're right, you will have headaches, you will feel so bogged down if you're not replenishing not only your carbs, but also your electrolytes. So moving on to the don'ts. Tyler, let it rip. What's your don't?
I got a good don't, but I kind of ignore it. So it's pretty funky. Don't have too much caffeine. That could really mess up with your stomach and your levels, but I definitely am on the caution of a high caffeine kind of guy. So, but for some, I know it really affects them and it could really bog someone down.
Yeah, it's funny listening to your kind of story of going from 12 espresso shots a day down to 6, and now you're basically, yeah, half the caffeine, but still like 4 times what a regular person might consume in a day.
Oh, and I'm feeling great actually. I'm down to 4 now and it's feeling good. I never felt better.
That's phenomenal. Well, then proof is in the pudding. My don't is involving race day. So don't try new nutrition strategies on race day. That includes your pre, your during, and your post activity nutrition, fueling, and hydration. You should have a plan, a methodology that is practiced. You spend so much time training for these events that to throw it away on something as simple yet important as how you're fueling and hydrating, it's crazy. And it's something that I've done as well in consuming too much caffeine because I didn't want to burn through my expensive Morton calves during my training block. So I saved them all for the race but they gave me GI distress. So I made the mistake. I'm telling you now, don't make that same mistake. Nothing new on race day. It's not just a meme. It's really, really important. And I think it's most important for your hydration and nutrition game.
Except for beet juice. Beet juice all day long.
Oh, add that to the do's for sure. Do consume beets. I think I can leave it there.
Exactly. You need those
100%.
nitrates.
So for my don't, and this goes back to me being a sugar fiend after a long run, is don't skip on during activity fueling. It's important. I know during lots of blocks, I would do basically every run but my long run, and I'm doing a lot of like medium long 15 milers, 14 milers, and I would do them all no hydration, no nutrition. During it, felt fine. I was able to perform fine, but when I got back, I was just so hungry, starving, so thirsty, and I'm just eating everything in the pantry, slamming down water. Where if you're actually fueling and hydrating after that workout, you feel pretty okay, and you can just have a normal human meal, which is kind of nice. So
But that's not fun. It's all about the fun. You want to be a ravaging the pantry kind of guy. That's what the best part of coming home is.
I mean, you can do both. You can do both.
Yeah, that is true. I just fuel during and then I'm just still crazy after. So it's nice.
All right. Well, with our nutrition do's and don'ts, I think we're slowly building up that spiciness. And I think we are at the point where, Brian, we are ready for your hot take of the week.
Yeah, and it's right on topic. The fact of the matter is, there is so much bullshit when it comes to all of the bells and whistles with hydration and nutrition. At the end of the day, all you need is a bucket of salt and a bag of sugar and some water, and you can do 95% of what is offered through all of these expensive regiments of hydration, the powders, the mixes, the pre, the post, all of it. You can do away with the complexity if you're just starting. All you need is some sugar and some salt, and just understanding exactly how much of each you need, you will do a very sufficient job at hydrating yourself and fueling yourself for your activities.
Put those gels in the poubelle, baby. We're done with them. Sugar and salt. Let's go.
How am I going to become an isotonic human? I want to be isotonic. How will I achieve that just with sugar?
Well, no, it's very fair, but I think at the end of the day, what all of these brands are doing is a lot of marketing on top of really just reselling and repackaging different ways to eat sugar and consume salt. And yes, it's important. There are some minute differences. Like sometimes you want some caffeine, sometimes you need magnesium, potassium with your sodium, and those are things that we've talked about. And if you have questions about it, please feel free to reach out.
New flavors are nice, but I really just, it all boils down to these are convenience products. And similar to going out to eat at a restaurant, going for fast food, you don't do that every day. You're cooking at home most of your meals because one, it's simpler, you know exactly what's in it, and it's going to be a lot more cost effective, especially when we're spending so much time doing these activities. Just going on these convenience products, it will get expensive.
You're right. They're pricing for convenience and they're pricing for the luxury of having some nice flavors. And, there is value to that. I'm not arguing and saying you shouldn't spend money on those things. What my argument and this take is really about the possibility for simplicity if that's what you desire. Because it's not as complicated as all of these fueling brands make it out to seem. Really, you can keep it simple and find 95% of the performance gains from hydrating and nutrition.
Yeah, I like that. I like that comparison because it's true. Like I'm sticking to the sugar. The sugar mixes simple syrup, salt, and like gummy bears and candy for all my training. And then the race, a few weeks before the race, I'll switch over to the good stuff just to get my body back into the, and to the taste of the high end, Morton's, the precision nutrition, and I'll have that on race day. So it's like going out for a nice steak dinner. You have your nice steak and you have your good nutrition. So that's a good comparison.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. And look, there's so many people with not enough time. And again, we're spending so much time working out, exercising, that, yeah, time is limited. So if you want to pay for that convenience, go for it. There are great products available. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're fantastic and oftentimes a little bit better than the simple stuff that we're suggesting. But a lot of it is hoopla.
I like it.
It is kind of nice to know that our boy, Eliud Kipchoge, is sipping on that Morton. So I want to be like him. So sometimes I just want to sip on that Morton calf and just feel like I'm Kipchoge and my alpha flies bouncing down the streets.
Well, that's it. Marketing works.
Well, how are you going to save up for a new bike if you get all the expensive gels? You got to get a new bike. You got to get those alpha flies. You're not going to get them by buying Mortons every single ride. You're gonna be broke.
Jeez, well, I think you just caught me. That's why I keep buying gels, is so I don't get too sucked into biking.
I heard there's a race you could sign up for pretty soon.
Tell me more. You have my attention.
It's with iron and ends with man.
Sorry, no money left over. Too much spent on gels.
Tyler, you throw together a little race for Andrew and I, a backyard try, and we might have the appetite for it. So we'll leave that ball in your court.
You guys might have to come on one of my race simulations before the end of the year.
Yeah,
maybe
or pre-Ottawa. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe not before the end of the year, but
yeah, that would be good. Pre-2025 race.
Wait, you just went against what I just said, but.
No, like my 2025 race, like my summer
okay.
2025.
Before 2025, I was thinking, okay.
Winter try.
Winter try would be very freaky, where you gotta like skate instead of swim. You gotta snowshoe instead of run.
I don't know who hosts it, but I saw Lionel do the indoor where it's
Super
in a
League.
pool, or Super League, yeah,
Super League.
where they
Yeah,
do
it's
it in a
nuts.
pool and then it's treadmill and on the bike. That's crazy.
Yeah,
And
the
they're
bike
on
trainer.
Zwift.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do one with my whoosh.
Oh, speaking about the bikes, I got sent an article which was super duper interesting from one of my hacker friends. Some people who presented at a conference, this team found a hole in the software for Shimano's wireless shifters.
The DIs?
Yeah, and they found that a bad actor could sit on the side of the road at any of these big races and shift the bikers' gears going by through a software attack on their shifter through the Bluetooth signal, and actually screw up like climbers by shifting them into the big gear and like essentially scuffing their race. And if like teams time this well with their rider attacking at the same time you like bog down another person to like 3 cadence per minute, you could like epically change a race. And
Pogi
that's
better watch
something
out.
that's a vulnerability that was reported to Shimano, and they went on the fly, and I think they've released a patch for that. But quite interesting that that was a vulnerability that existed.
That's crazy. Pogi better watch out. Yeah, I didn't know that like how techy the electronic shifters are getting. Like I also heard today that like it's kind of like erg mode on the trainer. Like it auto shifts your top ring for you. Like it kind of knows your resistance and when you're going to be on the like coming up onto a hill, and they'll downshift for you on the top ring. Like that's crazy.
Talk about brain dead. You're literally just sitting there in a chair. Don't need to do anything. Just move the legs and eat. That's
That's
nice.
it. Buffet, baby.
But it's crazy. And but this is the thing about cycling. Like relative to running, and yes, there's the wave of super shoes and carbon plated shoes that really worked wonders in progressing the sport, where now it's the new normal. Cycling has this curve of technology that is just ever evolving and ever increasing. And it's so hard to kind of keep up with the Joneses in a sport like cycling. The pros are just so out of reach in terms of the tech that they're using that it's just, it's unreasonable for anybody who is trying to save money to cycle and have the latest gear. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for tuning into this episode of the Boys in Motion podcast.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and join our Strava Club for more great content. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode.
And remember, folks, we are not medical professionals. The advice and tips we share here today with you are based on just our experiences and some little bit of research. Always consult healthcare professional or your doctor for making significant changes to your nutrition, or go see a nutritionist. You could also maybe get that covered under your benefits. Thanks.
Wicked. Thank you, Tyler. So, folks, keep moving, stay fueled and hydrated, and we'll see you next time on the Boys in Motion podcast.